Car salesman of Reddit, what's the most outrageous thing anyone has done while out on a test drive? I work at a used dealership. We sell all types of vehicles, but our most popular vehicle in this area is a full-size pickup. We always have at least 5 or 10. Early December 2 years ago, we had a dude come in and he was looking around at our cars. He said he was interested in a Focus wagon and wanted to take it for a test drive. No problem, man. Have a good time. He came back about 45 minutes later, said it wasn't what he was looking for, and rushed off. I went to put the car away and noticed it smelled like pine. The a-hole loaded a Christmas tree in the back and took it home, then brought our car back. Why couldn't he have just used a truck? Story 2. I had a guy show up on a fairly nice Harley Davidson out of shirt on. Nobody helped him, so I offered to. He wanted to drive one of our top-end cars, $320,000 Rolls-Royce Ghost. I got a service bag, the ones that protect the seats from the mechanic's grime, and let him drive it. We got up to about 140 miles per hour on a public road before I told him he needed to buy it before hitting 150 miles per hour. We went back to the dealership, he went to his bike and wrote us a check. We delivered the car to his house that night and has been buying cars from the dealership ever since. He's also purchased a 2014 Porsche 911 Turbo S, Maserati Gran Turismo Mixtradale convertible, or Grand Cabriolet depending on where you're from, and an Aston Martin Vanquish. Story 3. I had a dirty-looking guy with long, greasy hair want to test drive a Cadillac. We had a pre-planned route for test drives, but he turned the opposite way out of the dealership and told me he wanted to go his own way. At this point, he was acting somewhat strange, like nothing specific, just odd mannerisms. We drove a couple miles and I started getting a bit scared that I was going to be on the 6 o'clock news, when suddenly he pulled into an ice cream place. He bought us both ice cream cones and we ate them as he checked out the engine. Then we drove back and he left. It was nice. He didn't buy the car, and I never saw him again. I prefer to believe that he travels the country, buying ice cream for poor commission. Starved car salesman like a dirty, greasy Santa Claus. Story 4. Friend's story. A customer took a Mazda sedan for a test drive and midway pulled over and asked to swap with the salesman to experience the car from the passenger seat. Just as they were about to drive off again, he says he feels sick and can't go on, and thanks for his time. Turns out he just wanted a lift into town. Story 5. A few years ago, my dad went to buy a Nissan, and during the test drive, he got this brilliant idea. He pretended the car was malfunctioning and stopped it. When the salesman got out to see what the problem was, my dad sped away as a joke. When he returned to the dealership 10 minutes later, there were 2 cop cars, and nobody was amused except me. Story 6. My girlfriend used to manage an enterprise, and she said an old woman brought a car back with the front completely destroyed, and her explanation was that the gate at her development wouldn't open, so she rammed it. It still didn't open, so she rammed it 2 more times. She forgot that the rental car didn't have the little tag that opens the gate and no one was around to let her in, so she rammed it. From what I'm told, she was very nonchalant about it. Story 7. I test drove a sports car once and the salesman kept telling me to step on the gas so that I could get a good sense of the power. After ignoring him a couple times, he put his hand on my thigh and pressed my leg down into the accelerator. I instinctively backhanded him with a closed fist and gave him a bloody nose. The rest of the test drive was pretty awkward. Story 8. Preface. Not a car salesman, but I was the one doing an outrageous test drive. When I turned 16, I was super excited to get my driver's license. Even if my car was some 15-year-old piece of junk my 2 siblings each drove for a number of years before it was finally passed down to me. Anyway, the day finally came to go, do my driver's test, get my license. Dad and I got in the car and drove over to the license bureau, wait in line, get a tester guy to come out, and he started with the pre-test examination of my vehicle. Honestly, I had prepared for everything but this. Not sure why it didn't cross my mind, but I was pretty confident that even if this car was a piece of crap, it was roadworthy. I was wrong. Everything worked except my horn. They said I couldn't take my test without a functioning horn. It was Friday, already after 4 p.m., less than an hour before they closed. No time to go home and switch vehicles. I thought I was screwed until at least Monday. Shamefully, this knowledge had me on the verge of tears. My dad, being the great guy he is, as I was pulling out of the shopping center where the bureau was located, he had me pull straight across the street into a Ford dealership. I was like, what? He was like, we're going to test drive a car and use that take your test. I was like, you can't do that, can you? And he was like, just let me do all the talking. So we park, and he starts walking up and looking at cars. I just followed him, thinking there was no way in hell this was going to work. He asked me which car I wanted to do my test drive in. I was a little nervous about the parking part, so I told him I wanted the smallest car possible. He pointed out the Ford Focus. Just in time, too, because as soon as we decided on a car, the salesman walked up. I've spent a lot of time with my dad, and never before or since have I ever heard such lies come out of his mouth. He started telling this guy I was an honor roll student. Today was my birthday. He was going to buy me a car, and I thought for sure the guy wouldn't believe us. But he did. He ate up every word. Dad asked me which car I liked. I told him I liked the Ford Focus, so Dad said he wanted me to do a test drive. That salesman practically ran and got the keys. When he got back, he gave my dad the keys and said they could on a test drive. Dad said, no, my son needs to drive it to see if he likes it or not. And I want to be in the car in case he has any problems or questions. And the salesman was like, sir, I can't let you just drive off alone in one of our cars. And my dad came back with, well, I can't buy my son a car he hasn't test driven. Maybe the Chevrolet dealer down the street would be more considerate. Then he turned and actually started to walk away, told me to come along, we were going down the street. That salesman must have had one horrible battle going on in his head. Like, should I just let this sale walk away or bend the rules and let them test drive this car solo? He let us get almost to our car before he said, okay, you can drive it. I just couldn't believe it. So sure enough, Dad and I get in this car, and he has me drive it right back across the street to the license bureau. We get back in line, get the tester out there, and he was like, you sure are a lucky kid to have your dad buy you a new car before you even get your license. I didn't have the heart to confess we practically stole this car for the purpose of this test. Of course, the car passed the pre-exam with flying colors, working horn and all. The only thing was the guy noticed the gas light was on and said if we ran out of gas, I fail. Luckily we didn't. Those little Ford Focuses are great on gas. Then after we were done, we took back across the street, where if they saw any of that, me using their car for my driving test, they didn't say anything. My dad took it all the way up to the closing part, acting like he was actually going to buy this car, then said he wanted to sleep on it. We got letters from Ford trying to get us to come back for years after that. Never did buy a car from them. But anyway, that's my outrageous test drive story. Still can't believe we got away with it, but we did. And as far as I can tell, no one was the wiser. Story 9, former salesperson here. Probably the craziest would be this guy suddenly yelled, let's test out the 4-wheel drive. He veered off the road near the dealership and cut donuts in a muddy field. I didn't really give a crap if he damaged the truck because that's what insurance and lawyers are for. I just felt bad for the underpaid guys in the back who had to clean it back up. The only time I ever got upset with someone and told them to pull the duck over was this old man was test driving a brand new 2008 Corvette. This guy couldn't drive a manual for crap. He could barely get it out of the parking space, but he managed to get enough momentum to start rolling toward the road, and I noped the duck out. Story 10, used car dealer in NJ here. I was selling a 2006 Honda Odyssey XL, and the only info I get before a test drive is a driver's license and a phone number. The guy said he knew the area, so I let him go alone, because we were short-staffed. I told him to keep it short. This jackass is gone for 3 hours, and ignoring my phone calls. I was about to call the police, but I decided to give him another half hour. He finally came back, and the van was filled with groceries and some crap from Home Depot. I was pissed, and he knew it. I'll never forget what he said. I know you're pissed, but before you say anything, I'll buy it. I laughed and held firm on the price, which he didn't seem to have a problem with. Story 11. I've been a professional car salesman at the same dealer for almost 5 years. I've seen some crap. The strangest was this little old lady named Virginia, sweet old lady who was basically senile. She drove up in a silver 2001 Lincoln Town car. She said that demons had possessed that car, and the man in the radio told her to, but a new one. I was a little perplexed, but I agreed to show her a new at the time 2011 Lincoln Town car in silver. She immediately fell in love with it. She wanted to test drive it. I felt a little awkward about getting the key, as I couldn't really tell if she was serious. But nevertheless, I asked her for her driver's license. It was current and valid, so I got the keys. She starts the car, drives it across our parking lot, and then immediately stops when she spots her current 2001 TC sitting in the parking lot. She says, hey, there's a silver one. Can we drive that one? Now I'm really confused. I remind her that the car she is now pointing at is actually her current car, and we are test driving a new silver one. She says, oh, okay, we'll drive that one when we get back. Now I'm not comfortable. I ask her to stay, stopped here for a moment. I call my sales manager and explain to him what's going on. While he's just as confused as I am. He tells me to proceed with the drive, but not leave the general area or go on any freeways. We leave the lot and pull up to a busy intersection. While we are waiting for a green light, she starts asking me if this car has any bad demons in it. I chuckled a little bit and say absolutely not. It's a brand new car. Light goes green, and we proceed down a busy main road at about 20 miles per hour. Speed limit 45. She won't go any faster. Cars are flying around us, blaring their horns. I tell her to ignore them and focus on driving up to safe speed. She gets to about 30 miles per hour. We are cruising along at 30 miles per hour, while still annoying all of the traffic around us, when she suddenly, for no reason, just slams on the brakes. Thank goodness no one was immediately behind us. That surely would be a collision. I politely ask her to please pull over on the side of the road. She asks me why, and I tell her that there's some feature I want to show her on the car. She pulls off the road. We both get out, and then I jump in the driver's side seat and say, okay, Virginia, I'm going to show you cool stuff. Go ahead and hop in. I'll drive. As I drive us back to the dealership, I point out the nice ride and stuff, blah, blah, blah. She's being very quiet. I pull up at the dealership. I walk her inside and then tell my sales manager what had been going on. He admits it all very strange and he comes out to talk to her. She tells him she wants to buy the car, music to a sales manager's ears. He looks at me like, what's the big deal? Sell her the car. At this point, I don't feel right about it. I ask her if she is absolutely sure that she wants to buy a brand new car today. She says, yes, I'd love to. Do you have any Silvertown cars? I explain that we just got back from a test drive in a Silvertown car. She doesn't believe me and wants to see a new Silvertown car. I called the police and explained that I believed she was senile and should not be driving. They came down to the dealer to meet her, and that's when we found out that she had gone missing from an institute not too far from here. They have no idea how she got the 2001 town car. It was registered to a family in town with no relation to her, and it was reported stolen. I don't know whatever happened to her after that, but it was all really sad. Story 12. My mom went into an Audi dealership and was asking about a car that was $80,000. She wasn't planning on stopping by that day, so she was wearing yoga pants and a t-shirt without any makeup. The car salesman kept trying to push her towards less expensive cars, but she tried them out and didn't like them nearly as much as the other. When my mom finally asked him why he wouldn't show her the car she wanted, he said, I think that car is too expensive for you. Little did he know that my mom had just empty nested and was looking to finally get a luxury car after decades of buying used Suburbans that had seen better days. Story 13. Former salesman here. Most outrageous would have to be almost hitting me getting on the freeway and not yielding right of way to an 18-wheeler. This old bag was so close I had to grab the wheel to prevent my death. Story 14. I was showing a car to a guy one day. When I went to go get something, he had opened the hood to look at the engine bay and he had closed it before I got back. Well, while we were driving on the interstate. Sure enough, the hood flew open because he hadn't latched it all the way. It smashed into the windshield, shattering it. We were going really fast, and all of a sudden, we couldn't see anything at all. I thought we were goners. But somehow he made it off the road without any further incident. I was also offered sex in a car by an attractive older woman, but didn't do it. Story 15. Thankfully, this did not happen to me. It was one of my salesmen I hired in the past. He had a guy test drive a S500 Mercedes, only a few years old at the time. He let the gentleman and his wife have it alone, which happens frequently at Highline dealerships. They returned 45 minutes later, a bit of a long test drive. They said the check engine light popped on and the ABS light, and they were scared of the car and left. Come to find out, they removed some $2,500,000 worth of parts to fix their S500 at a repair shop a few miles away. Thankfully, they were found out and caught. Story 16. A year or so ago, an old man was test driving an F-150, and when we got back to the lot, he insisted on backing it into the parking space himself. There was a BMW behind us, and it looked like he was going to hit it, so I offered to get out and move it. I'm not going to hit it, he said. Sir, we're getting awful close. Put the vehicle in park for me. I'm not going to hit the damn car. Crunch. I basically said, well, there it was, and hopped out. Showed him the damage, and he insisted he didn't do it. I think he was just embarrassed and panicked a bit. I would have worked something out with him since the damage wasn't all that bad, but he called me a liar, hopped in his truck, and left, so I called the police. He wound up paying a couple $100 for the damage. Story 17. About 20 years ago, my dad's coworker was with two Mexicans that wanted to test drive a car. My dad's coworker was Cuban with blonde hair and blue eyes, so it didn't look like he grew up speaking fluent Spanish. About 5 minutes in, they start talking to each other in Spanish, saying something like, when we go around the corner is when I get his attention, and you shoot him. So the employee opens the door while they're going about 35 miles per hour in a residential and rolls out of the car and takes off. The car sped off and headed for Mexico. They were eventually caught. I guess they were cartel. Those guys don't duck around. Story 18. Not a salesman, but once I went to a Mazda dealership to test drive an RX-8. The salesman was a talkative dude, and to make conversation, I asked him what was the craziest thing he's seen on the job. He told me he let a guy test drive an RX-8 as well, and that the dude absolutely loved it. Before buying it, though, he had to go show his mom to see if she would approve. Dude asked the salesman, "Can I go show this to my mom to see if she approves?" Salesman said, "Of course." The dude doesn't come back after a few hours, so the salesman calls him up, and the dude lets him know he's on his way to New Orleans to show his mom. The dealership was in South Texas. The dude shows up a day or so later and buys the car. Salesman is relieved because he would have been fired and then some. Story 19. We had a brand new 2014 Audi S4, and it was right after a snowstorm. The kid test driving it was younger and came with cash. We were going for a normal test drive when he went into an open hospital parking lot. At that point, he proceeded to turn off the traction control and start doing donuts as I hold on to the oh crap handle for my life. After telling him to stop well over 10 times, he stopped and I kicked him out of the driver's seat and drove back. After getting screamed at by our GM, he ended up buying the car. Needless to say, he scared the crap out of me. Could have been worse. Story 20. Took a woman on a test drive. She backed into a fence while turning the car around to go back to the dealership, and when I had to go report it to management when we returned, there was damage. She denied it. and quickly jumped into her car and left. That and the guy who just pulled out slowly into 4 lanes of traffic without looking. I've had some fun ones, but those two stick in my memory. Story 21. I let the car business a long time ago, but one customer will be forever seared into my brain. She came in to trade her 6-year-old car in on a new Ford Explorer. I got the car ready and pulled it around front. She climbed in and carefully pulled out into traffic. She asked if we could run an errand. I said sure. We drove to a house a few minutes away. She got out, took a small bag out of her purse, and placed a used feminine product on the windshield of a car in the driveway. Got back in the car and said, "Damn that hoe." We drove away. She bought the car and was gone a couple hours later. I will never be the same. Story 22. Not my story, but at a local Nissan dealer in Queens, 2 very large and intimidating men took a test drive with a salesperson and drove him to The Hole, an area off the parkway that is literally a hole. They told him to get out and the car was never recovered. He never got ID before taking the drive and lost his job as a result. Story 23. I was in the car business for nearly 20 years, and there are plenty of stories, girls saying they'll do anything if you'll help them get the car. I never did, too stupid. People trying to steal cars and failing. I drove one of the first tourist shows that came into my dealership right off the truck. Turns out it had no oil in it. The motor was $11,000 back in 1991. A secretary and I smoked the clutch in a Mustang GT by taking turns running it through the quarter mile. At a gas station next door to a dealership, a lady sparked the gas tank. Pass. My boss played The Doors, "Come On, Baby, Light My Fire," over the loudspeakers. I went to show a conversion van one time, and upon opening the door, there were 4 or 5 salespeople tooting a little substances. Customer left. Same dealership with the fire. Boss and I are test driving a customer's trade-in, and boss sideswipes a guardrail on purpose and said, "Git has to trade now." He actually did that a lot. More bad things. The a-hole that disrespected the dying lady was the general manager of a place called Riverside Chevrolet in Tulsa. Okay, in the middle 1990 EOMOSAs. They were giving out substances as bonuses, spiffs, and got busted one Saturday afternoon by the FBI, which is why I can tell the story. This asshat was the general manager. Everything went down with his approval, but one of the sales managers took the fall, did prison time, came back to work for the asshat, and got fired not long after. Loyalty only buys so much in the car business. When I was a brand new salesman, I sold an old man a car and had to take it home to show his wife. In this guy's humble dwelling were enough Indian artifacts to start a large museum, tens of thousands of arrowheads and whatnot. Also, when he went to get the money for the car, he rolled back a mattress that literally had several $100,000 in cash rolled up in it. "Whoops, I probably shouldn't have shown you that," he says, and I of course told him not to worry about it. I got back to the dealership with the contract and cash and related this story to one of the managers. I could see in his eyes he was going to rob this old man, so I deleted all his data from the computer system and burned the paper part of the car deal. The old man lived a long time, and no one ever bothered him. Another story. I was selling used cars one Saturday when a new car salesman brought me an old car to look at. He was afraid he couldn't make the deal because the car seemed to run rough. I popped the hood and looked at this rough idling git, and there, in this 1967 Chevy, that canoe was a 502 Rodak bad boy engine. I didn't say anything to him except, "Let's go for a drive," and went up the road about a half mile. I turned around, told the salesman to hang on, and ran a 10 or 11 second quarter mile on the way back. The look on his face was priceless. And yes, he made the deal. Damn, I hate that business. But it did have its moments. Story 24. This is a bit different from most of the stories on here. This guy showed up in a flashy Maserati and wanted to test drive a new Nissan. I don't even remember what it was. Maybe an SUV or something. He drove it to an ATM and withdrew like $200. Then he just gave it to me. That was kind of weird, and I wasn't really sure what to do with it. I tried to refuse it, but he was insistent. He said it was a tip and just wanted to make sure I was taken care of. We went back, and he said he would have someone be in touch to complete the purchase. My manager was trying to get him to stay and just buy it now. The guy broke down and started yelling at my manager about how his son had just passed away and he had a bunch of other things he needed to do. This was all a long time ago, so I don't really remember the details. I was in my early 20s at the time, maybe only 20 or 21. Probably about the same age as any kids this guy would have had. I reported the money he gave me because I didn't really know what else to do with it and didn't want it to become an issue if he told other people later. I figured we'd just apply it to the purchase or something. My manager told me to just keep it. He never ended up buying the car, and I never heard from him again. Kind of a weird experience, all things considered. I sold cars for years, and that was the only time someone ever gave me extra money, especially for not buying a car, and the only time I saw someone yelling at a manager in the showroom. Story 25. I was working at a Dayton, Ohio BMW dealership selling new and used cars. A late 20-something, fairly well-dressed gentleman wanted to look at a used Jeep Cherokee. He had credit issues, but I called a local credit union and got him approved. I grabbed the keys and we left for a test drive. He asked to stop by his financial advisor's office to get a second opinion. I was slightly reluctant because this office was located in the absolute worst part of Dayton. I agreed since it was only 3 miles from the dealership. He pulls into this parking lot and runs inside this sleazy men's club and tells me to wait. Soon all these escorts come out to check out Jim's new ride. These girls crawling around in the car, pushing buttons and cranking the radio up. Lil Wayne starts playing and they start grinding on the leather seats. All in broad daylight, mind you. Jim finally returns with this financial advisor and tells me the payment is too high. I agreed and knocked another 500 off. He gave me 100 free passes to the club. I still don't know what happened to my necktie. Story 26. I used to sell cars at a used dealership years ago. I had this younger guy come in, maybe 18 or 19. He had tattoos on his neck, knuckles, long-sleeve plaid shirt in the dead heat of summer buttoned all the way up. So he walks in, always a red flag, and walks up to the only sporty car on the lot, an Audi TT. Tells me he wants to buy it. He hasn't opened it up, hasn't looked at it, nothing. I tell him we should probably drive it just to make sure. He agrees. So we get in the car, me in the passenger seat, and him driving. He speeds out and onto the highway where the dealership is off of. He starts flying around cars, using the median, opposing lanes, and just overall driving like an absolute nut. We swerve onto a connecting highway and he punches it even harder. At this point, I'm actually scared. I've never been scared before on a test drive, so I tell him we need to take the next exit. I'm still being respectful. He blows past it. At this point, we've maxed out the speedometer, 140 or 150, I think, and I asked him to slow down. He ignored me, so I tell him we have to take the next exit. Blows past it. I asked why we didn't take it. He tells me I need to give him more warning, so I told him I don't care what the next exit is, to take it, and we are heading back. So he finally takes an exit, 3 later, swerving around another car on a small ramp, narrowly missing him in the guardrails, and we go into this crafty part of town. He obviously knows where we are. So at this point, I don't know what's going on, but I'm thinking I'm going to get jumped. We drive around in this neighborhood, up and down every street. He was very obviously looking for someone. I keep asking to get back to the dealership, and he won't make a noise. I'm thinking he's looking for his friends, and I'm going to get jumped. He reached his hand into his pocket for what I'm assuming is a knife, even to this day. I immediately ask if we can get back to the dealership. I told him it's already 5:30, and it's my daughter's first birthday today, and I was supposed to be home at 5. He looks at me for the first time and says, "Oh, you got kids, man?" And I say, "Yes, I have 2. It's my daughter's birthday today. I'm the only one that works, and I support my wife and kids, and we're barely scraping by right now. I don't really even care about this dealership or these cars. It's just a job that I hate." And he kind of just stared at me while still driving. "I didn't know you got kids. Let's go back." So we start driving back, and he says he has to grab his brother. We go to this terrible apartment complex that I didn't know about. He turns the radio up as loud as it goes and jumps out, runs inside. There are all sorts of people mean mugging me, so I turn down the music. I think to myself, get in the driver's seat, drive away, be safe, do it. Just as I decide to do it, he and his brother come out. He gets back into the driver's seat. I volunteer to get in the back, but he says, "No, my brother is sitting in the back." So he sits him right behind me. I'm freaking out. I'm thinking I'm getting my neck slit. So I sit sideways in the car as far away from the seat as I can. I pretend my phone rings and I talk to my wife. I keep telling her that I am trying to get home. So finally, we end up at the dealership. "I'm safe, everyone is here." Nope, everyone was gone. Just me. He says he will buy the car. He wants to write a check. I tell him we don't take checks for payment. If he pay by check, we'd have to wait until it clears, which I'm happy to do, but if he just goes and gets a cashier's check tomorrow, he's fine. He gets up in my face, asks if his people's money isn't good here. I tell him it's just our policy. We don't take checks from anyone unless there is some sort of backup funding. I beg him again to let me go to my daughter's birthday party. He keeps telling me I won't take his money. Finally, he says he's going to get someone and I better be here when he gets back, so he storms out. I lock the dealership and I leave as quickly as I can. In the beginning, he was telling me about all of his brothers that were locked up. I kept getting the feeling that he wanted to join them and I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He didn't ever come back, but I was on high alert for a few weeks. I quit very shortly after. Story 27. Not a dealer, but I had my wife do this. It shocked me and the dealer. So we're looking at full-size cars and we look at the trunk. My wife says, "Wow, you could hide a couple bodies in there." He says, "Yeah, maybe." Without warning, she climbs in, lays down and says, "Yeah, you sure can. We'll take it." I looked at him and said, "We're newlyweds." His shocked face lost all color and became even more exaggerated. He said, "Oh, well, looks like you got you a winner." The entire time my wife is laying in the trunk rolling and saying, "Heck, I bet we could get 3 in here." Story 28. This is 2007 to 2008. I'm 23-ish at the time, new Pontiac sales. This girl comes in, 20 years old. Cute girl, a bit chubby. She is alone. None of the other salesmen pay any attention to her. So I introduce myself, ask her what she is looking for. She says she wants to look at a G6. So I show her where they are at on the lot. We are talking as we are walking out there, trying to decide what she is looking for in a car. She says she wants a sunroof. I ask if there is anything else, and she says not really. She wanted one of the G6S with the giant sunroof, but we didn't have any. We looked at the G6S and I could tell she wasn't impressed. I suggested that we go look at the Grand Prix. They were a bit more and bit bigger, or a car, as well as more expensive. I made that well known to her. She was okay with it. We were looking at the normal Grand Prix, as well as the GT. Several had sunroofs. On the end was a black Grand Prix Jeep-X. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it is a front-wheel drive family sedan that has a 303 GPL's 4 motor that is essentially the same motor found in the same year Corvettes. It also stickered in the $38,000 range, huge jump from a G6, and I made her aware of the price difference. She saw the car and was immediately smitten. It was black with chrome wheels, beautiful car. She says she wants to drive it. I go get the keys for it and come back. I explain to her that I will drive the car first, show her things about the car, and then we can go and switch seats. She agrees. We are driving. I'm showing her things, telling her about how fast it is. She says she wants to see how fast. I stop at a stop sign and get on it a bit. She is impressed. So at the next stop sign, I tell her that I'm going to turn the traction control off and really get on it. Her response is "May, you already got on it once, so I'm totally knowing what's happening next." She didn't. At the stop sign, I turn the traction control off and completely stop this car. Smoke is rolling off the front tires as it torque steers and finds its traction and takes off. She's in the passenger seat saying, "Holy crap, take me back to the dealership." I'm thinking to myself, we are in trouble, she's pissed now. But what she said next put me at ease. She said, "I have to have this car in my bank closes in 45 minutes. I need to go get a check so I can this car today." I drive her back to the dealership, and of course my manager is trying to get her to finance, etc. She says she can't get financed because her credit isn't that great and to just let her go get the check. They insist. They run her credit, and she gets mad and says, "I told you so," stormed out and left, telling me I'll be right back as she is leaving. The other salesman and my manager tell me she's not going to be back and that she doesn't have enough money for a $38,000 car. I respectfully disagree. 30 minutes later, she comes back with a certified bank check for the full price of the car, including taxes. Drove out of there with that car about an hour later. Turns out she was the daughter of a retired GM employee who made quite a bit of money, and he had actually bought about 4 cars from the same dealership in the previous 2 years. Story 29. A couple of years ago, I go to buy a car. At the beginning of the drive, I can tell the car salesman isn't looking so well. He's looking a bit loopy and pale. About halfway through the drive, he yells for me to pull over. As I stop, he opens the door and pukes all over the ground and the inside of the door. The last 10 minutes in that car were the most awkward and worst-smelling moments of my life. Story 30. Not the salesman, but the buyer. In 1989, I took a new Nissan for a test drive. I think it was a 240SX, but I can't remember for sure. This was in a small town in Louisiana, and at the time, you could go on a test drive without a salesman in the car. I drove it about 5 minutes away to show my then Jeff. On the way back, as I was passing underneath an overpass, doing around 40 miles per hour, a drunk in an old Ford pickup truck blew through a stop sign and slammed into me. I tried to steer away from him at the last second to avoid it, but it was almost a T-bone. The car rolled twice and had most of the passenger side ripped off. I can remember watching the world spin around in slow motion as broken glass flew through the air. Thank God I was wearing a seatbelt. The car rolled twice, but ended up back on 4 wheels. The funny thing was, this was one of the cars that talked to you. And even though the car was ripped to shreds, it kept telling me that my key was in the ignition. I took an ambulance ride to the hospital to get checked out, and they brought the car back to the dealership in a paper bag. Story 31. Wasn't a car salesman, but I was a Honda mechanic in Tucson for a few years. Well, my parts guy had a roommate that was a mechanic at Toyota next door. He was a car guy like me and did a lot of work for some of the guys. From wide open throttle motorsports, well, one of the guys dropped of his Supra to get some work done. It was built, single turbo in the works, license plate said 1 KHP. Anyway, he pulls up in front of my stall one afternoon and yells, "Want to go for a test drive?" I literally ran and jumped in before my boss saw me. So we are driving down a road in Tucson called Oracle Road, which is 4 lanes wide and divided by a curbed median. So he does a few small second and third gear pulls, which is mind-blowing. This was the first 750 GP car I had ridden in. So we hit a light and make a U to head back to the dealership. He slides it into third and tells me to touch the dash when he does the next pull. So there we are, 3rd to 4th gear, pull. GPS Espita had us at 140, and we both see a cop on the other side of the road. Bam! Lights and sirens, but he can't do anything but head up the light. We just made a U-at, and we were just about to hit the dealership drive. So he goes for it. I mean, it's not his car, and 140 miles per hour in a 45 zone is far from a minor offense. The road the dealership is on is curved and only has one way in and one way out. So we make it back to his bay at Toyota. He pulls the Supra in next to a car he was working on, and he yells for me to help get a car cover on the car. He then racks the car on the lift and lifts it up and pulls a car in behind it to make it look like he's busy. By this time, the cops have Auto Mall Drive locked down, and the helicopter is headed our way. I walked back to Honda heart beating faster than it had ever. The cops went dealership to dealership looking for this bright blue Supra, but they never found it. Toyota was second to last place they checked. When they rolled past by Bay, I stopped the cops and asked what was going on. He said there was a bright blue Ferrari was running from the police. Story 32. Me driving a customer's trade-in. He had an old Subaru Forester, 2002 or something. It was pretty get sex up. Test driving it to make sure it rolls and see if there are any noises. Open the driver door to a seriously foul stench. I mean, it was like a blast of concentrated landfill juice collected on a hot summer day. This actually isn't uncommon. Lots of people are dirty as hell and your cars show it. So I do the drive, get back to the dealership and start checking the inside, rummaging through what looks like 10-year-old newspapers in the floorboard, covered in what looks like coffee stains. Start looking around and there's quite a few coffee spills. Oh well, crap happens. I go to move the newspapers back to the floorboard and all I see is a ton of maggots squirming around. Once I notice the moving ones, I realize that what I thought were coffee grounds were dead ones. Layers and layers of dead maggots. Best part about it, the guy was, forgive me for not knowing exact title, the director of the medical hospital at Fort Hood, huge army base in Texas. Not to mention when he put down his monthly salary on his credit app. I jokingly said, "Oops, you must have added an extra zero." He looks at me with a smile and says, "No, that's no mistake." He could have paid cash for a $35,000 car with a month's salary and still be able to get his morning coffee. Story 33. I work at a Ford Lincoln dealership, and this was a few months back, but I had an elderly couple come in and ask to take a new Lincoln MKZ out for a test drive. While making a selection to drive, they bring up the fact they're very interested in the lane keeping system and driver assist package. I think it's great they are wanting to get some of the latest and greatest technology. So I find one with all the features we talked about and proceeded with a drive. Just before allowing them to drive, I ask if they have a radio station they want to listen to. They did. It was a spa station on Sirius, so I put that on for them and we start the drive. About halfway in, I ask why they were so interested in the driver's assist features, and they come right out and tell me he has issues passing out at the wheel and wanted to feel safer while driving. I ask how frequent, and they say a couple times every time they drive. If I would have had the power to revoke their driver's license, I would have on the spot. I recommended not listening to the spa station at this point because anyone would pass out listening to that music. But we continued on with the spa music and all. On the way back, sure as hell he passes out while going 70 miles per hour on the freeway. No one really notices it at first, and the car did a good job keeping it in the lane. But then his wife noticed and had to scream and hit him gently to wake him back up. Couldn't believe they would even risk themselves, let alone others' lives, by getting behind any wheel. I made him pull over, and I finished the drive for them. Story 34. I used to sell smart cars, so if anyone recognizes this, then hey, what's up? I had a showroom full of smart cars, and business wasn't exactly booming, so I would give anyone that came in the full song and dance. And make sure they felt like they were the most important people in the world. Thanks, Mercedes-Benz sales training. Anyway, one day this guy came in driving a seriously beat-up old work truck, wearing mud-covered clothes and looking basically homeless. But I recognized the name of the company on the side of the truck, even though it was almost worn completely through. Turns out, he's the owner of this large, earth-moving construction company. Gave him the full routine, test drive, schmoozing, etc. And he ended up buying 7 smart cars on the spot for his workers to use as fleet cars. Same thing happened with another seemingly untoward guy, walks in, tells me his business plan. I talk with my manager about it, and the guy ends up buying 25 smart cars. K-Ching. Commission check was good that month. Another somewhat related story. My father had sold his company for a decent chunk of change and wanted a Porsche. So he walks to the nearest dealership, ready to buy and drive home that day. But my father's dress sense is somewhat informal. So these snooty S ignore him. He gets pissed off, makes a small scene, gets told something along the lines of, "You can't afford anything here." My old man has a legendarily short fuse, so he tells them to all get liberally and profusely ducked. He walks to the next nearest competitor's dealership, orders the top-of-the-line Porsche available, and 4 months later, after it gets delivered, he drives it to the first dealership, waits for someone to walk out to the car. After they recognize him, he proceeds to merrily drift his way around their car yard with his middle finger held high out the window. Story 35. I had a car salesman start crying on me when I told him I was still looking and not going to buy the car that day. He broke down and cried. A 30-year-old man. He excused himself and went to see his manager, came back and cried some more. He said he thought we connected and was sure I was going to buy the car. Story 36. I'm not a car salesman, but I do have a pretty crazy story. My buddy and I were bored one day, so we decided we would try to get a dealership to let us test drive a brand new Subaru Rax-Sty. We were so determined to drive this Subaru that we went so far as to sit with a salesperson and lie about potentially trading in my friend's current car, 2011 Mazda Speed 3. So, after a credit check and discussing potential monthly payment figures, they ended up letting us test drive this brand new white Sty with our sales guy. What I haven't mentioned yet is that our sales guy was a 20-something-year-old car enthusiast, just like us, but a bit older, who was brand new to the dealership. The test drive begins. What immediately struck me as odd was when the sales manager came out to give our salesperson the keys, instead of immediately handing us the keys. He hopped in the driver's seat and told us he would like to get us to the designated start location. Okay? Anyway, he heads towards this really nice neighborhood, all the while going on and on about the brakes. Suspension, differential, why it's a better buy than the wax. Yada yada. I just want to drive the damn thing already. So he begins to pick up more and more speed through this residential area, going about 50 in a 25, and I see roundabouts coming up in the road. He doesn't slow down and instead uses the roundabouts to show off the traction and handling. A little out of the norm, but okay, I get it. Right now, I'm pretty impressed with this test drive, as it's the most fun I've ever had on one, but frankly, it was pretty scary. We approach the last roundabout and I see him sneakily press the traction control button as he's speeding up towards this roundabout. He rips the e-brake, pops the clutch, and initiates a drift around this last roundabout. It all happened in slow motion. I look at my buddy in the back seat in awe as it's happening. Like, what the heck is going on right now? He drifts the roundabout, narrowly avoiding a collision with the sidewalk at the end, proceeds to pull over and hop out. My buddy and I did a few wide-open throttle pulls on the remainder of test drive, but that's it. We were honestly still in disbelief and it was hard to concentrate. Haha. Story 37. Happened a few years ago. Worked at a used car dealer and had an older Corvette. It needed a paint job, but I still advertised it. Guy called and put a deposit on it and flies into town. He brings his lady friend and they come to the dealership. Car is in the paint shop across the street and they wait all day. Still not done so. I tell them I'll take them to their hotel and pick them up the next morning. We stop at a liquor store and I drop them off. The next morning, he comes running to my car with some other girl. They are both looking haggard and jump in and he tells me to drive. I'm thinking, where's lady friend? Turns out his lady friend is in love with him and he promised they would drive the Corvette across country back home. He's obviously banging her, but isn't into a relationship. He tells me the night prior when I dropped him off, he started hanging out with the flight attendant from his flight into the town. She ends up going to bed with him and he tells her they are going across country in this Corvette. So now I'm driving them to the dealership and listening to the flight attendant call work and saying something came up and we'll be off for a few weeks. So car is finished drying, he buys the car and they drive off. I made my commission, have a laugh, and then the other girl pulls up in a taxi losing her mind. She woke up, he's gone, and left $300 on the table and won't answer his phone. She's going crazy, calls mom, gives me the phone. Her mom reams me out. I apologize, but explain it's not my problem. She finally left by, ended up calling for the next few days, seeing if I knew where he was. Story 38. Not a test drive, but a relevant story. One time when I was in high school working in the service department at my uncle's dealership, a customer drove home after getting an oil change on their Honda Pilot. It wasn't until they pulled into their driveway that a drunk car jockey named Ganesh woke up in the back seat. He scared the guy, but he ended up being cool about it, not going off on us and walking away with a very funny story. In his defense, Ganesh had a very boring job and was a pretty able guy. Story 39. On the news a couple years ago, a manager from a fast food place took the weekend deposit, went to the dealership, and did the 48-hour test drive. He has 60 grand in cash and a brand new SUV. Took them a week to track him down. Story 40. I was a salesman at one time. The most outrageous were a girl and her boyfriend on a test drive, and he proceeded to drive a BMW into a ditch. Thank goodness nothing was damaged. Best test drive was an old van with two ladies from rural Alabama. They were loud, talkative, and hilarious. She proceeded to ask me questions like, if the kids are loud in the back, can I get a special removal device and things of that nature? Story 41. One time, this tall, thin, gangly fellow wanted to see if the car he was test driving could handle his daily routines. Then he wanted to see how long the car could drive while on E. It was nighttime and the needle read empty on the gauge, but we kept driving, man. We kept driving. Story 42. Not a car salesman, but when I was around 15 years old, I went with my mom on a test drive. While she drove, I sat passenger seat, and the salesman sat in the back, telling my mom about all the perks of the car. As he's telling her about the car, I decided to check on how far back the seat could recline, so I pull the handle and rock back and then forward repeatedly. I bounce back and forth like a retard for a good 30 seconds deep in thought. As if I'm testing the car, since my mom got to do the actual driving, I looked to my mom and said, "Well, looks like the recline works." and look back at the salesman who looks back at me with the face of complete confusion and appears to be at a loss for words. He eventually just goes, I've never seen anyone do that on a test drive. And then we continued the drive. Story 43. I worked at a dealership for 12 years. One busy Friday, some less than savory-looking gentleman pulled onto the lot and wanted to drive a town car. It was very busy, and the car they wanted to drive was older and only priced in the $10,000 range. The salesman was so busy that he allowed them to just take the car out on their own. Apparently, the ATF had been investigating, following these less than upstanding citizens. They chose this time, of all times, to attempt to pull them over. As an officer approached the car, the driver allegedly attempted to run him over. The officer opened fire, hitting the driver in the face and also leg of the passenger. Several months later, when they had all of the evidence they needed, the car was graciously towed back to our dealership. It was missing the hood completely, has several bullet holes in it, door, engine shroud, firewall, and a pillar. The seat still had large quantities of red liquid on them, and it was covered in fingerprint dust. Since auto sales is, indeed, a profit game, the powers that be decided to recondition the vehicle, sell it, and cut their losses. No idea what was spent on the vehicle, but when we sold it, there was still a bullet hole in the engine shroud, as well as the firewall. This particular dealership is one of the more reputable in town, and opted to disclose the entire story to whoever purchased the vehicle. So whoever purchased it has a pretty awesome story to tell. Story 44. I've been pulled over on test drives, talk about awkward, and had a few people driving too fast, but nothing super crazy. I work in a pretty well-off area, so although customers can be a-holes, they're not insane. Story 45. My boyfriend and I were shopping for a new car. He went to the dealership to pick up the car for a test drive, and then came and picked me up at home. We drove it around a bit and decided that we were going to buy it. BF called the dealership to see if it was okay to drive about 30 mins north to pick up the cash for the down payment. The sales guy said no problem. We stopped to get gas. While waiting for the next gas pump to be free, I looked out the passenger window. A woman got into Expedition parked perpendicular to us. Her rear window was a good 1 feet above the roof of the car we were in. Here, reverse lights came on. I started saying, no, 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 no! While the BF searched for the horn on the wheel, she backed up, crushing the passenger door. BF finally found the horn and she stopped. We both sat there in shock and practically in tears. Then I remembered that we did not yet own vehicle yet. No paperwork had been signed, no money exchanged hands. Luckily, the salesman was awesome. The manger of the dealership, less so. We were able to get a different car, and that was the last we heard of it. Since then, we've purchased a second car from the same salesman because he was so awesome. Story 46. What about vice versa? Years ago, I had an old truck that I wanted to trade in on a new vehicle, and the salesman took it for a test drive. When he came back, he said, "What's that noise?" I said, "What noise?" He mumbled something vague, gave me a ridiculous offer for my truck, then promptly disappeared for a long lunch. When I tried to drive my truck off the lot, I realized what the noise was. The car salesman had put my vehicle up against a curb, revved the engine, and dropped the clutch to test it. He sheared 3 of the 4 bolts off the drive shaft. Clutch was good. Needless to say, I bought my new car from another dealer. Story 47. Back in 2005, a lady in her late 50s pulls up in a Geo Metro. This should have been in sign from the beginning. Asked to test drive one of our new Chevy Assessors. I thought, why not? She might have came into some money for all I know. So I get her driver's license, make a copy, and off we go. This dumb starts weaving in and out of traffic at 110 miles per hour. I'm freaking out. I screamed over and over to slow the duck down. "You're going to damn hit me. If I live, I'm going to kick her ass is all that is running in my mind." So this lasts for about 6 minutes, and Metro's finest hits the blue lights on us. No pedal to the metal, just pulls right over. So 2 cops exit, and I see both of their hands on the pistols in the holsters. Before they can even get to the car, this lady starts screaming. The pedal was stuck and that she had to throw it in neutral and pull the e-brake to pull over for them. All I did was shake my head no over and over. So, short story long, cop gets me out of the car, told him what happened. She was arrested for reckless driving, among other things. Plus, I personally towed her crafty Metro off the lot when I returned. Story 48. I got this one. 4 years ago, was driving a sweet old lady in a white Honda Fit. 5 minutes in, she said, I don't feel very well. She starts speeding up really aggressively and hooks a fast left into a deli parking lot. That's when the smell hits me. So terrible. She jumps out of her seat, beelines it for the deli and yells that she'll be back. I look over at the driver's seat and is a streak of light brown wet diarrhea. I was sitting inside the hot car for a good 15 minutes watching it bake into the seat. She comes out and walks to the passenger side with a tightly wrapped bag in her hand. She asks if I wouldn't mind driving her back to the dealership because she isn't feeling well. I really didn't want to embarrass her, so without reacting, I get out, walk around to the driver's side, and before she can see what she had done, I sit down in her crap. I drive her straight back to her car and give her my card. I drop the car off at detail, warning the boys, and go straight home to change. Next morning, she shows up at 9 a.m. and buys the car. Full price, no negotiations. If I was smart, I would have sold her the seat covers. Story 49. One of my first few customers after being hired, this girl comes in wearing nothing but a loose-fitting sundress and asks to test drive a big-ass SUV because she has one kid. Proceeds to hit on me the entire time and talk about her life and her asking about mine. Then stops at 7-Eleven without saying anything, goes in and gets some snacks, gets back in the car, and very casually drives back to the dealership. Not quite on test drive, but minutes after finishing a test drive in the tin can. That is a Fiat. Customer wife has a seizure in my office while in the middle of paperwork to buy the car. After about 30 minutes or so of recovery, the husband turns to me very nonchalantly and says, "Where were we?" And we finish the sale with his wife barely coherent. Story 50. I used to work at Subaru as a detailer, and we had just gotten in the new Subaru Outback with EyeSight. EyeSight was basically 2 cameras that were used to adjustable speed control, as well as automatic braking. If you were too close to a vehicle in front of you or approaching something fast, you will hit, it automatically brakes for you. Anyways, this salesman was an idiot and wanted to show me how the system works on the lot. I had a sneaking suspicion that something would go wrong. So I hop in, he says everything is ready. Watch this. So he floors it along the back row of the lot, driving right towards another new Outback. He was expecting it to brake for him when he was zooming towards but bam, drove right into another vehicle head-on and smashed up 2 brand new vehicles pretty badly. His reason, damn, I forgot to turn EyeSight on, oops. Nothing happened to him because he's the manager's son. Story 51. Not a car salesman, but a friend's uncle is a homeless man arrived at a dealer and said he wanted to purchase a Corvette. When asked how he was going to pay for it, he replied with, "I'm going to wake up, and the money is going to be there." He then proceeded to pull out a sword. The cops were called, etc. Story 52. I worked at a dealership in a kind of rough neighborhood in Milwaukee. We had a buy here, pay here program for people with bad credit, all of that. My craziest test drive was an uncle and his nephew. The nephew seemed normal, early 20s, kind of nervous, and he was the one buying the vehicle. They wanted to test drive a conversion van with big chrome wheels and high miles. Nephew was fine. The uncle was in blue snakeskin shoes, baby blue suit with a baby blue ruffled shirt, baby blue top hat, white can, little Richard haircut. I got the keys and went with them on the test drive. They took the car into the ghetto where they proceeded to pull over and show the vehicle to the cousin's other uncles, like 8 of them. A crowd of 30 people showed up crowding around the vehicle, admiring a beat-up old conversion van with big rims. We were out in that hood for over 20 minutes, but eventually we got back in the van and headed back to the dealership. When we figured payments, the poor kid couldn't quite afford them, so I didn't even get the sale. Story 53. Can I test the brakes? Sure. Man proceeds to slam brakes at 65 miles per hour, spinning the car out. Guess they work. I made him buy new tires all the way around. Story 54. I have 2 stories. 1. I work at a Toyota dealership. Last summer, a guy came in wanting to test drive the Scion FAR S with his buddy. He wanted a manual. I pulled up the car and went along on the test drive with him. I swore I got whiplash from this guy. He kept violently stalling the poor car, blaming the clutch. And that newer manual vehicles aren't supposed to stall. No damn clue where this guy got his info. As we were pulling up to the dealership, I asked to switch seats so I could park it back. The man scoffed, but soon became silent when I started driving it around the area. No stalls. Parked it into place nice and smooth. His friend was poking fun at him for his terrible driving. He ended up purchasing an automatic. 2. A few years back, a guy took a FAR S for a test drive at our dealership. I wasn't working here at the time when this happened. He tried to show off and decided to drift a corner. He ended up crashing the car. I don't know the exact details afterwards, but the sales guy was okay, and so was the driver. Car was totaled. Driver went to court. Story 55. I work at a dealership that provides very high-performance cars. I don't actually do sales directly, but the company isn't dumb. They pull a girl like me from what I'm doing and have me accompany them on the test drive. Let's just say that when you have rich, entitled, powerful men who you are trying to squeeze money out of for a flashy car, they tend to feel they can do pretty much anything. I definitely didn't expect to see the amount of junks I did when I applied for the job. Story 56. I don't work for a car dealership, but this story is worth it. Well, my cousin became a national criminal when he would go to dealerships, test the car, and then never return. He kept doing this with each car increasing in value every time, so it was more believable with each attempt. After 3 times, he eventually got up to a $98,000 Bentley. We lived in Michigan, but he ended up making it all the way to Louisiana, I think, where it got caught after he crashed it into a ditch when being pursued by the cops. He's still in jail and is serving 7 years or so, but it's not talked about too much within our family. He was already wanted for a ton of other things in other states when he fled Michigan for other forms of theft. He randomly went on a spree of crimes after leaving everyone and everything behind. This was about 3 years ago, so my info might be slightly off. This was my first cousin, whom used to be very close, really ducked-up situation. Story 57. I let a young guy, 19 years old, drive our used late model S2000 newer trade about 3K miles. Anyway, took it down roller coaster road down the street, then on the way back, managed to hit 120 miles per hour in a 40 miles per hour zone. I was scared at this point. Pulled into Dobbs Honda at the auto mall, and he had his mom inside with my manager already signing the purchase order. Full pop with all the bullcrap added to it, edge theft recovery, weatherizing underlining spray, extended warranty, needless to say it made up for shirting myself. Story 58. My uncle owns a car dealership in the USA, and a guy came in and took a BMW 320i out for a test. Turns out he took it to rob a gas station, get away, and just ditch it. The ID was of some past guy that looked like him. Story 59. Current car salesman here and there has been 2 incidents. One was my manager forcing me to go on a test drive with a girl who only had her permit. She blew a red light while making a right-hand turn just as a bus was coming. Luckily, her dad grabbed the wheel and started screaming at her until she came to a stop. The bus locked up its brakes and narrowly avoided us. Then there was a guy who claimed to own all kinds of sports cars who took a 14 Camaro SS out for a test drive. After going over 100 miles per hour on the freeway, he asked if he could do a 180, which I was fine with because it's not my car. He executed it perfectly, and I got the sweet adrenaline I crave. Story 60. I worked at an electronics store in HS in college. A couple of guys drive up in a new Escalade and went on a shopping spree. When they presented the credit card, it was pretty obvious it was stolen. We quietly called the credit card company and the police, but it hadn't been reported stolen. The manager made a decision and told them the card was declined. They don't say anything. No arguments. Nothing. They leave the store and realize they've locked the keys in the car. Rather than seek assistance, they break the window. At that point, we knew something was really off and called the police. Apparently, these guys were test driving the Escalade and decided they wanted to keep it, so they beat the hell out of the car salesman, left him in a field outside of the city, and then went shopping with his credit cards. Story 61. Not a car salesman, but once my aunt and uncle were shopping for a new car. The salesman let them take one out for a test drive. He was driving, though. They decided that they didn't want the car. The salesman, upset at losing a sale, drove recklessly and ended up crashing the car. Story 62. Last week, I had a kid driving a Mustang GT. He got up to 120 on the interstate, and as we were slowing down, he dropped it into second while doing 70. The car made some horrible noises, but it made it back to the dealership. Story 63. Not a car salesman, but was involved in law enforcement. In about 1986, 2 men were pulled over for drag racing each other in 2 different Toyota Supras. Turns out they were cousins, and each was a salesman at a different Toyota dealer in the city. Each one had given the other a set of keys to a Supra earlier that day, under the guise of each being a customer at the other's car lot. They kept the cars and met each other after work and got caught racing on the street. Story 64. I worked for a used car dealership in college part-time. There was a guy who come in and trade in his car every 6 months. All cash, new tags. It was to throw off the police because he had a unique kind of business. And he test drives a 5 Series, leaves at 10:30 Owner calls him at 11:30 and he is still not back yet. Calls him again every 20 minutes. At 4 p.m., the guy pulls up, car has tints, rims a full stereo with subs everything, and a bunch of other crap done. Guy throws the boss a bag with $100 bills. Story 65. For a friend of mine's birthday, his mom took him down to the exotic car store, literally called Exotic Cars, and convinced the salesman her husband was a billionaire looking to buy their son a new car. He ended up test driving a 458 Aventator and an SLS. The salesman drove first, just telling him about the car, and they went on the freeway, and the salesman was driving over 120 miles per hour on the freeway, while my friend was freaking out, not expecting this to happen. He hopped in and was gunning the car over 100 miles per hour on the freeway. Came back, switched cars a few times, and left. Happy birthday. Story 66. Friend works for a BMW dealership. He told me he had an 85-year-old man come in and wanted to test drive a brand new 7 Series, red flag here. It was a quick test drive. They took it around the block. However, when he came back, he helped the man out of the seat and noticed the seat was wet. Yep. He lost control of his bladder and pissed himself. The foam and padding on the seat was soaked. Fortunately, it didn't leak through the bottom of the seat and onto the floor. The dealership ended up having to replace the seat. Story 67. Current Nissan salesman here. On my 2nd month selling, I had a young lady with her 6-year-old son come in to look at a Pathfinder. The child kept crying, saying he was sick and wanted to go home, but she seemed very determined to drive a new Pathfinder. We get the car seat into the back and drive away. The kid is being whiny as hell the whole test drive. As we finally start pulling into the dealership, the kid vomits all over the back seat. The woman was so embarrassed, she practically ran to her car and never answered another phone call. Story 68. Trying to sell a sports car, guy came to drive it. He loved it, was buzzing around corners and totally lost it, into a ditch, ripped out the exhaust. I totally was going to buy it, but the exhaust is broken, so no. Story 69. I am a lot manager at a dealership. We have a Jeep test track that people love rolling and getting Jeeps stuck on. No idea why we trust everyone with a license on it. Story 70. My uncle was a car salesman. He took 2 young people out on a test drive. They shot him in the back, left him for dead on the side of the road, and stole the car. He was able to drag himself back up to the road and lived. Car salesman of Reddit, what's something you don't want customers to know when buying a car? As a former car salesman, our greatest fear was your smartphone. If we gave you a number and you had a smartphone in your hand with Auto Trader or some other site pulled up, we were neutered. Also, salespeople have little to no power. The sales manager is the person you want to speak to. As a basic salesman, I just want the sale no matter what. The manager is actively keeping us both from what we want. Story 2. During negotiations on price, they will need to take a call and leave you in their office to discuss while they take the call elsewhere. Reality? He just put the phone on speaker and is listening into your conversations from the outside phone. Story 3. The one thing I've seen car salesmen fly into a rage over is comparison shopping, where customers call up and say they have other offers on a car. What's your best offer? And basically, the customer actually makes the dealer give the lowest out-the-door price they're willing to, or the customer never even comes in and gets in a high-pressure sales situation. Salesmen have to do it in a lot of situations. Making a sale is more important than maxing out profit, but boy do they hate it, since I never see them rage against other car-buying tactics that supposedly save money. Like people who come in at the end of the month or right before the end of the year, and I've used the tactic myself for the best deal I've ever gotten. I really think that aggressively comparison shopping is the one technique that really saves you money. Story 4. My absolute least favorite thing they do is, what monthly payment would it take for me to get you in this car today? Yeah, I don't care about the monthly payment because you can manipulate that by extending the term. And just because your name tag says you work in finance doesn't mean I'm going to fall for everything you say. Story 5. When that little 4 squares box sits out on paper, notice how the box of the total price never really gets changed. It's also better if you buy a 2-year-old vehicle under warranty by a long shot, but the loan will be at higher APR. Get pre-approved through your bank to check the numbers. More money is made on used cars being sold. Ding insurance and Scotchgard service is a ripoff. Buy wheel upgrades later. We're screwing you on your trade-in if it's in decent condition. Staying silent and waiting for you to speak is a tactic that gives us an advantage, so be aware. Sometimes our APR rates are better than your bank's. You really shouldn't buy a new car if you can't put money down unless it's 0 APR and it will be paid off by the time it increases. The percentage of cash gotten to us is based off how many cars we sell that month. So always go into a lot the last week of the month and during the day Monday through Thursday. String them along and make it take forever. They will become more desperate to make the sale. They don't want all their time wasted and they want the sale to get them bumped up the next tier for their monthly percentage. They might get 10% of profits from their sales of 1 to 5 cars sold that month. But if they sell 6, they get 15% on all of them. 10 sold can get them 18%, etc. Ex-car sales guy. Probably left some out, but I'm on a phone and it's been a few years out of it. Story 6. I worked in car sales for a miserable 4 months last year, and that was enough for me. Here's what I learned. Based on my car dealership and rumors from guys that have been selling for 10 years. Salesmen hate when you drive the lot just looking, and it kind of screwing with their income, because you could be a dead lead, which in my case was not much. The average consumer only owns their car for 3 years before they trade in, which is ridiculous in my opinion. Something like 94% of people think they know the exact model, color, etc. that they want, but end up going with a different option. Salesmen use this to their advantage. A good salesman will take the test drive with you, driving first after demoing some features. This tactic builds anticipation for the would-be driver, and then the salesman and customer switch out halfway through. Every new car, no matter how low the mileage, has been driven at a high speed for craps and giggles. Personally, I didn't know how to drive a standard, and I was encouraged to take out our new Mustangs, old Jeeps, and whatnot out to learn. I'm very sorry for probably ruining some transmissions to unknowing customers. It is very easy to steal a car. We had a 2012 Mustang GT in Grabber Blue get stolen. Police report was filed. The car was never found. Most of the employees seem to be on their 2nd or 3rd marriage, are substances users or felons, and genuinely do not care at all about the customer, just the commission. That being said, there was a reason. I left my job of 55-hour weeks away from my wife with roughly $600 paychecks for 2 weeks. Obviously, I never held much commission either. In today's world, the salesmen have little to no power to change the price. It really is all up to the managers. Hail damage sales are great for business. The dealership gets money from insurance, and they sell the car to you at a bargain, which is still too high in many cases. Selling 3 cars in one day is called a hat trick, just like in soccer, and it's very hard to do. Listen to what your car salesman is asking you on the ride. Chances are he's looking for at least 45 yeses, which means a sale that day is nearly guaranteed. Example: hello, welcome to Joe Cooper Ford. I'm Danny, and you are? Boy, it's a day today, isn't it? Yes. Are you here for sales or service? Okay, great. Were you thinking about a truck like you have or something roomier? Great, we have some trucks over here. Wow, that blue is really pretty, isn't it? Yes. And you said that fuel economy is important, right? Yes. Well, this truck will get 20 mpg, which sure beats your current 13, doesn't it? Yes. And you said you like to take your boat out on the weekends, right? Yes. Well, let me show you this backup camera that will make things much easier to hook up your trailer yourself. Isn't that convenient? Yes. Go ahead and park it on Sold Row up here and we'll get you all taken care of. I know, you didn't think you could buy today, but you like the sound system, right? Yes. And you will really enjoy saving money on gas, right? Yes. And you enjoy the insert exclusive safety feature, right? Yes. Well, it sounds like we found you the perfect vehicle. Do me a favor and read me the mileage. Gives the customer a sense of ownership, participation. All right. Hey, would you like some coffee or soda while I go wrap this up? Yes. All right, you get the point. Yes, questions are easy to do, and it gets the customer in the habit of saying yes. I don't know why, but this method works. If you have a hot wife or girlfriend, nearly every manager and employee has gawked at her and mentioned the various forms of sex they would have with her. Guaranteed. If you buy a car, see if you can get some extras like floor mats thrown in, or better yet, the car wash code, and demand 2 full tanks of gas. Push them as much as you can. Don't ask a manager for the code, ask the salesman. Like you said, smartphones are the worst when it comes to the negotiation phase. Don't be distracted by the hand movements. We used a deal called a 4 square, where we pointed to one price. Another, lift pencil in the air to take your eyes off of the monthly price and then back to the final number. Also, your first quote assumes you're a get, rich, or both. Always reject the first 2 offers, if not more. Walk out if you have to. It's just a car, so don't buy into the emotional attachment they want you to feel. If I think of anything else, I'll add to it. Sorry, I'm subbing right now, so this is all I could come up with. I hope you all have great car buying experiences. Story 7. Print out an appraisal of your trade-in from both KBB and Edmunds. Be honest with the assessment. Now print out an appraisal of the desired used car from both KBB and Edmunds. Wait until they give you a written offer on the trade-in as well as a price on the car. Chances are they will value their car at KBB, which is always inflated, and yours at Edmunds, much more realistic. Show them the quotes and explain to them how it's not very fair for them to quote KBB for their car price, and yet for some reason, they won't use KBB to value your vehicle. Serve them the Edmunds suggested retail price and tell them to match it as best they can. Ask them if they plan on reselling your vehicle or wholesaling it. If they plan on reselling it, there's more room in the trade-in price since they are the ones appraising and paying for the car. If they are wholesaling it, most of the time they can only offer what a buyer is offering. If the revised price of their car and the value of your trade-in are really good, take it. Most of the time there will still be wiggle room. Don't be afraid to thank them for their time and then leave. They will almost always call you back. Another thing you can do when you are looking online for used cars. If you see one you like, print off the page and write the date you found it on. Dealers won't tell you how long they've had a vehicle on their lot, because the longer it sits there, the less bargaining power they have. They hate it when cars sit around for a long time, 6 months to a year, and will start to be more willing to move the car for less if they're sitting on it. You still need to show them you know this information, or they'll deny or try to redirect conversation. Make sure they show you a Carfax of both the vehicle you are buying and your trade. You can to check to make sure that A, the vehicle has a clean title, B, it has not been in any accidents. If it doesn't have a clean title, I don't recommend buying it unless you're paying in cash and can actually perform work on the vehicle. Getting financing for a car with a salvage or similar title is really difficult. If it has an accident, you can use this as a negotiation point. If it has frame damage or an airbag deployed, this will strengthen your position. Always ask them to show documented proof of any repairs to the vehicle done as a result of accident damage. The Carfax for your vehicle is important because they will jump at the opportunity to use a documented accident to devalue your car. Make sure they can show proof. That's about all I have for now. Source: I am the used vehicle inventory manager at an Audi dealer. My supervisor is in charge of appraisals and pricing. Story 8. Okay, so I have been a receptionist at a new car dealership for 2 years now. Here are a few things for your knowledge. Salesmen have absolutely no power. Car salesmen are puppets. The managers tell them exactly what to do and say at any given moment. If someone has a problem, chances are it is not with the actual salesman, but with something they have been told to do. Go to the highest management you can if you have a problem. If you have a major problem, the owner of the dealership is known as a dealer principal. The salesmen have it pretty rough. This business taught me that the actual car salesmen have the worst job in the lot. They are not only the scapegoat of the management, but they are overworked and poorly paid for the amount of time put into their work. The salesmen at my dealership work 2 12-hour shifts a week and split shifts the rest of the week. Oftentimes, they are required to come in on their days off to finish a previous deal, meet with a customer on the customer's time, or sometimes drive a long distance for a dealer trade in order to get a car in a specific color or trim level for someone. When I say they are poorly paid, I mean they have a crap system. They are either paid commission on vehicles sold, or they are paid minimum wage, whichever amount is higher during each pay period. Also, they are never paid overtime. So the whole working on days off situation is not in their favor. Non-internet sales folk have to pull their customers out of thin air. They either wait for a drive-up customer, go through their previously sold customers, or hound the service customers. Occasionally, they will get some traffic from a special sale or promotion. But oftentimes, the internet salesmen get all the marketing. The moneymakers are actually in management and finance. If you think a salesman is out to make a buck, you should know it's because they receive terrible commission. It's a lower percentage than the sales managers and finance managers make. And keep in mind finance managers also make a percentage of every deal that goes through their desk, and the salesmen only get their own deals. So imagine if 5 sales guys sell 5 cars apiece under a sales manager. He's got 25 deals under his belt, and the salesmen only have their 5 each. Finance managers also get paid for selling warranties. So if a salesman seems pushy or tries to sell you extras, it's because they probably do need that extra buck. The lengthy payment negotiations can be easily avoided. If you have been sitting in a showroom for 3 hours trying to get the lowest payment possible, it's not exactly the dealership's fault. Sales managers take the credit information you provide and try to finance your deal with a bank that will approve you. The length of time it takes for this process is partially due to the fact that they have to communicate with these banks and finance companies. If you want that $200 per month payment on a $20,000 vehicle, you need to drop a bigger down payment. If you want a lower interest rate, you better have good credit. If you can't afford the high insurance payment on the new car, then don't even bother. I recommend visiting your bank or credit union and getting pre-approved. I also recommend getting a car insurance quote or two on the vehicles you are interested in. Seriously, it is that simple. The information you will have to provide the banks is the same information you provide a dealership. We are the middlemen. You have the power to make good financial decisions. Be aware of BMV fees. People are surprised when they have to pay for their license plates and such. Blame the government if you must blame someone for that. Story 9. Opposite of most of the stories on here. Best and nicest used car salesman ever story. More or less due to some bullcrap unfortunate circumstances involving family. Insurance policies and totaled cars. I had a very short amount of time to find a good car with so-so credit and more or less no down payment larger, which severely limited my options. I had never financed a car before and started off over in the new car lot thinking I could pull something off. But unfortunately, that did not work out due to the lack of down payment. The salesman helping me once I explained how I got in the situation I was in, who typically only worked on the new car lot, drove me over to the used lot down the street that was a subset of his dealership. Once there, we sat down. He went over what I could afford monthly and my credit and what I could put down, which wasn't much, and what I was looking for, and spent an hour and a half putting together a list of very good used cars, most of which were Honda and Toyota, that were all in my range and all really good cars with low mileage. I went back there for 4 days that week, test driving, etc., and working with him on new options, since my father had decided to help me out with a down payment pending my father's approval of whatever car I picked. He also offered to talk to my father when Dad was balking at the prices, which weren't bad. Dad just hadn't bought a car in a long time, and didn't get that haggling doesn't work now like it did 20 years ago, and was utterly convinced that he could talk them down like $5,000 on the price. Yeah, no. These prices were perfectly fine after I did some research and confirmed that they were right in the good range or less than the market value of the vehicles. Salesman jumped through all these hoops, tried to talk down his manager, despite my father being extremely difficult. And I felt so bad when I eventually couldn't work out a sale because of how much work this guy did for me. Basically, my dad's loan on a down payment was conditional on him agreeing to whatever I picked out, which is bullcrap, I know. This was a stupid fiasco. And the price and make, etc. Of course, my dad being the stubborn ass he can be ended up taking me out to find something better and not such a ripoff, which meant we drove around to 2 other dealerships where they didn't have anything better in my price range either. He finally ended up agreeing to the down payment on a far crappier car, an older Ford Focus with over 100,000 miles on it, that was only sold at $1,500 less than the value of the other cars that I was looking at because he liked that one better. I was so pissed about the whole thing. considering any Honda or Toyota would last 200 miles more than a Ford in just about every scenario. After this ordeal, I will take the damn bus before I ever engage in any kind of financial dealings with my family ever again. Sadly, I tried to go back recently while looking for a new car to find the guy, and it appears he moved to Germany. I always meant to tell him thanks for all the help, etc., because we generally super nice. He also told me that he bought his wife a leveled character in WoW for her Xmas present. We kind of bonded over that. Story 10. I am a current car salesman at a dealership on the East Coast. First off, to all of you that think all car salesmen are sleazy, thanks for perpetuating what should be a fading stereotype. The industry is morphing with the times, meaning that many dealerships have embraced the internet and is using it to their advantage. My dealership is one of those. We've acknowledged that the profit margins are slim on new cars, and your average consumer does weeks' worth of online comparison shopping before even stepping foot in a dealership. We set our online pricing roughly $750 cheaper than all competition in a 500-mile radius of our dealership. As many have mentioned, there is a hidden profit incorporated into all new cars called a holdback, which is usually $750. We strip our cars of holdback to be the price leader. That being said, although that is completely unbeneficial to us salesmen, the dealership gets a kickback based on our total amount of new units sold, and that's how we stay in business. Beyond that, by making people's car buying experience rather hassle-free, roughly 60% of our business comes from repeat business and referrals. Here are a few things you should know when buying your next car. In car sales, and all sales, controlling the deal is key. You can take control from a salesman in several ways. The easiest is just to be well-versed in whatever you're buying and how the general sales process works. If you can show up the salesman information-wise, aka knowing more about the car he's trying to sell you, etc., you will surely rattle the salesman and get in his head. Make the salesman aware you are familiar with holdback commission flats. A salesman will get a flat no matter what price he sells the car at, and how car sales work. Salesmen thrive on being in control, and that is why we withhold information from customers. Ask for stuff. Meaning, if you've hit a point where the price will drop no more, ask for things like an extra tank of gas, accessories at cost, free oil changes, etc. Sure, the sales manager might say no, but he also might say yes just to close the sale. If you're going to try the walkout technique, leaving when presented with numbers, do it very casually. Basically, the calmer and more collected you are when you get up, the more you're going to scare the salesman into thinking you have a better deal elsewhere. Be nice to your salesman. He's more likely to work his manager over for you if he doesn't think you're an ass. Be nice, but don't let your guard down. It's possible. Everything that is presented to you in the finance office is incredibly marked up. Some of what they sell back there is important. Gap insurance, extended warranties. But the dealership makes a lot of money off of them. If you're going to buy that stuff, just know that their best price back there certainly isn't their best price. Dealerships usually hold a percentage point or two in the finance office. If you don't think you're getting your best rate in the back office, tell them you're going to seek financing through your credit union. This tip really only works for people who have good credit. And finally, never ever visit buy here, pay here places or establishments like Drive Time. They feed on desperate people and duck them over by overpricing vehicles that don't really go through any sort of rigorous inspection at all. They also will go to town on your finance rates because they know they can. If anyone has any questions or needs specific advice, feel free to PM me. We're not all greedy duckers. Story 11. I was a car salesman for 6 years. Kia, Hyundai, Toyota. I've done it and seen it all. Eventually, I had to get out. The business wrecked me physically and emotionally. I started back in 2001 at the age of 22. Young, enthusiastic, great shape, making $7,000 a month in my first 3 months. Ended at 29, angry, overweight, severe anxiety, and depressed. Had to take 2 years off to be a dad and husband and go back to school. I lost so many great years of my children youth, always working in weekends and never being around. I have countless weird, bad, and cringe stories. But staying true to the ops question here are something we don't want you to know. We build rapport in order to break down your walls and use your personality against you. Not to mention find out your situation and hot buttons to make the most profit we can. If your car is unlocked, the used car manager or closers will go through your car, glove box, and have a decent idea what your car is worth before you even get back to the lot. We did cars for a living. Most of us can guess ACV, actual cash value, of a car just by knowing the make, miles, year of a car. It's a game we used to play a lot when it was slow too. Lock your car. We sell you on payment to get you off price. We know that getting a lot for your trade is important, if not the most important, and we use it as a closing technique to get you off price. We know that money down means commissions. More money down, closer to that $250 payment everyone wants. We hit you at 36 months and one down to shock you on purpose. The second someone doesn't hit the roof or negotiate off those numbers, the guy isn't interested in buying a car and just wants numbers. We will stretch payment from 60-month to 72 to keep your payment lower, since 99% of buyers only care about their payments in order to keep the price high. We make you watch us walk around your car as we touch your rattling dash, and pick at your door dings to let you know we saw them and reduce the amount you want for your trade. $4,000 for your car? Sure. If it didn't have that broken dash, 3 and scratch in the hood, I think you would be right. It's a nice car. But we isolate you from your family and friends on test drives, closing areas, and finance to remove the second baseman who is there to help, giving us a better chance to make more dollars. And it does. And keep your bros with you at all times. Salesmen have zero idea what they can sell a car for unless it's on ad or something called a hit car. Big commission if sold at asking price. Good salesmen will never ever tell you what the price of a used car is until you like it. Simply that they believe it is in the ballpark you want to spend. If you are not committed to buy a car if all the numbers make sense, you're going to have a bad time. Story 12. The salesperson is actually negotiating with the desk manager on your behalf. The desk manager approves all deals at the dealership. It is the skill and reputation of the salesperson that will get you the deal you want. If a newbie walks in with a deal that seems a little too low, like he wasn't even trying, the desk will pencil him a high counteroffer to try to get a higher commitment from the customer. This continues until the desk feels the salesperson can do no more. Then the closer, a senior salesperson specializing in closing difficult deals, is called. He is introduced as the manager. After the deal is reached, hands are shook, and you are escorted into the finance office to sign papers. The finance manager earned his position by consistently selling the most cars on the floor, the most skilled salesperson at the dealership. His job is to make the dealership back-end profit, as well as securing loans for you. Interest rates are negotiable. The salesperson takes a percentage of the front-end margin made on the car. If the margin was $1,000, the dealer may deduct a pack of $500 and leave the salesperson with just 15% of $500. Dealerships may have a minimum commission, mini, of around $200 per car to protect salespeople from online sales with zero or negative margin. The desk manager gets paid based on the average margin he makes on all deals he approves, as well as his total front-end profit for all deals. The closer gets paid by a combination of deals closed and margin made. The finance manager gets paid off the margin, made off the interest rate, as well as all the extras he sells you. If you paid below invoice for a car, it's because they are making money off your interest, trade-in, or something else. If you allow them to make a little margin off the car you're buying, you can get a better deal on interest or a higher trade-in. Most customers only think about the purchase price, but there are at least a dozen other variables that determine a car deal. The dealership may get kickbacks and cash incentives for cars sold, but the salesperson rarely sees this money when his commission is calculated. The dealership purposely makes the salesperson ignorant so that he doesn't go around dropping his pants by offering discounts and incentives to customers for no reason. Also, the service department is completely independent from the car sales department. It is difficult for a commitment made by salespeople to be honored by the service department if it's not written on paper and followed up by the salesperson. The general manager oversees all operations at the dealership and is the only person who has power in both departments. Story 13. The only time I've ever purchased a car, the salesman was fairly straightforward with me about the price, and we came to a mutually agreeable deal. I honestly don't understand why people feel the need to play this game when it comes to car sales. If the dealer wants to mess around, find another one. It's really that simple. Story 14. I just bought a car, and as a 20-year-old girl, I wasn't taken seriously. I was going to pay cash that day, but they were trying to get an extra $3,000 out of me before I pulled out my smartphone. Then they still weren't treating it as a real deal, so I physically got out of my chair, shook his hand, and started walking out. After that, they took my counteroffer, and I basically bullied them down to a reasonable price with repairs thrown in. Got away just under Kabi. Take them by surprise. Works pretty well. Story 15. For years, I have thought about doing an AMA from the dealer's perspective. I was in the car business for over 20 years. Salesman, sales manager, general manager, and dealer principal, owner. Most people coming into dealerships are plain scared, so out of their element and predisposed to thinking they may be taken advantage of. It is the industry's own fault, though. For many years leading up to the government getting involved, about mid-70s, see Sen Monroney. It was a seller's market and carpetbagger types dupe people all the time. As we get into this day and age, though, the car business is the most transparent retail sales business I can think of. Can you go into a furniture store and pick out a sofa, then web search the dealer's cost? No. Not to mention the markup. Jewelry, furniture, and appliances all have huge markups exceeding 300% at times, and no way to find out what the sellers paid for it. It's tough for dealers to make a profit now that everyone knows the cost and doesn't want to pay a fair profit. What's fair? Well, if you want your dealership to be there for service, support, and future sales, about 10% is good. I know what you are thinking. No way am I going to go in and purchase a car that they paid $20,000 for and offer them $2,000 profit. Knowing that, manufacturers help the dealer out by giving a little kickback. It's called dealer holdback and varies how it has worked from brand to brand. Basically, it's a sales volume bonus for the dealer. Salesmen do not get paid on this. Sales personnel today make crap for money. Another way the dealer makes money is on the back end or after sales. This is where most misunderstandings take place in the transaction today. I would be glad to answer questions on it outside this post if anyone wanted, but for the most part, here is a quick breakdown. Finance rates. Bank says you qualify for 3% APR. Dealer says you qualify for 4% APR, SIGs you to higher rate and gets profit from bank. This is soft profit though, it can go away. Warranty. Extended service contracts. Dealer buys them for $1 and sells them to you for another $1. Makes profit. Can also be soft profit. Rims, stereos, paint protection, and gingerbread trims. All have profit built in. Some dealers are much worse than others. If you are getting lied to or mislead, walk away. If you get treated right, be loyal. Before you go in, get learned up. If you don't understand anything at all, ask more questions. Have someone else explain it like you're 5. Car people, like any other group, get stuck in their own language. Oh boy, do they have some fun terminology. Story 16. I sell cars. There's honestly nothing I won't tell the buyer. I want them to know everything. I'll tell them exactly how much the dealership has in the car. Our dealership has a really progressive philosophy. People like buying cars from us. It is not an adversarial situation. This is definitely not the case most places. Story 17. I used to work as a salesman for a bottom-of-the-barrel dealer. If you had credit problems, you came to us and we could get you into something. The whole process started with you coming onto the lot. I would walk up and figure out if you wanted to buy cash or go financing. If you had cash, then I treated you like a big shot and showed you what you want when you wanted to see it. If you wanted to do financing, then we went a different route. I would take potential customer inside to do a credit check. Basically, it's like going fishing. You send off the credit check to a number of different lending agencies and see who picked up the loan. Sometimes it was up to 4 hours before you got a yes or no back, and in that time, it was my job to keep you at my desk and entertained with chit-chat, coffee, and sometimes YouTube videos. I was a glorified adult babysitter. I had to keep you there because if you left, you could go to another dealer and we would lose the sale. If your credit was especially bad, we could get you into something, but you wouldn't get to choose and it would have an astronomical interest rate. The way we sold it was with a line like this. Think of it as a starter car. We get you into this and you drive it around for a year. As long as you are making your payments on time, you will be building your credit rating back up so that we can get you into a better car with a lower interest rate later. What we didn't tell you is that whatever is left on your loan is compounded onto the next one. Say you got a $15,000 car with a loan at 15% interest. You made payments through the year and got the loan down to $11,000. We would get you into a newer car that costs around $18,000 at an interest rate of 10% and add that remaining bit on, so you would now have a $29,000 loan at 10%. You could do this up to 4 times with people before they were overloaded with debt and you couldn't do it anymore. It was actually called sinking them into a new car. Story 18. I work in a company that buys and exports vehicles out of the US. I've had to deal with hundreds and hundreds of car salesmen. I've seen just about every trick. Car salesmen are not your friends. It's their job to be your friend. They will tell you anything you want to hear. Be a smart buyer. Look at reviews and KBB value and average Craigslist prices when you go shop for a car. The highest fear of a salesman is a guy that comes in and knows more than they do about the car they are trying to buy. The number one thing a customer needs to know is we, the dealer owners, are the ones making bank. We make a lot of money. We also invest a lot of money. It also costs us a lot to keep a car in our inventory. The average profit off a car a dealership owner makes is around 30% of the cost to you. If you want to save money, come in on a Saturday when the week is about to end, a couple hours before they close. Waste as much time as possible. They can't kick you out. Start to negotiate right before closing time and waste time. Make calls to random friends asking their opinion. Waste time. They want you out, and they want some money before the weekend is out. I've gotten 25% knocked off advertisement price this way, just because they wanted to get rid of the car and wanted to leave. I see a lot of people saying to go talk to the sales manager. Don't do that. Use the sales guy as a middleman. A friend of a friend is a friend. Stay in an office and keep talking to the sales guy, not the manager. They always have some sort of friendship or friendly relationship. Use that in your advantage. A sales manager will blow you right off. A sales guy is willing to blow his manager for a sale. I'm going to get downvoted by just about anyone that works as a dealer or as a salesman. My dealership is overseas. Story 19. Okay, I just made an account today to add to this discussion, and it took me 10 minutes to figure out how to comment rather than submit a whole new post. Eesh. I digress. In what was a really weird period of my life, I sold cars at a Highline dealership for about 9 months. I'm a lady and was 22 years old at the time. So like I said, weird. I made a killing because I had absolutely no sales experience. And 99% of my coworkers were all hardened 50-year-old guys. Who are you going to buy a car from? Never ever negotiate based on a monthly payment. If they ask you how much you want to pay per month, don't even answer. Some dealerships will adjust the term, so you're making payments for 50 years to give you the monthly payment you want, or they'll jack up the down payment to some astronomical price, or both. If you're buying used, I'd always ask to see what cars they've had on the lot the longest. Most places are measured on how quickly they can turn their inventory, and they end up losing tons on cars that stick around for more than 60 days. Also, once something has been there a while, they've had to cut the price enough where you're probably not paying more than it's actually worth. Always assume there's a 5% margin for negotiating on what they're offering you for a trade-in. Prices listed online are usually pretty accurate, so help you if you walk into a dealership without any sort of printout from their website, KBB, AutoTrader, etc. Take your time. Salespeople hate when a customer comes back multiple times to consider a car, because it usually means they're smart. Start shopping at least 2 months before you'll actually need anything. You get hosed when you need a car that day, week. I'm sure there's more, but this is getting long-winded. Feel free to ask if you have specific questions. Story 20. I have been a finance manager for over 15 years. Yes, I am aware that I'm the lowest form of life in most of your eyes. That being said, those of us that have been around for a while haven't done it by lying and cheating. That is not to say I don't have a few tricks up my sleeves, but most of that comes from negotiating 5 or 6 car deals a day, rather than 5 or 6 in a lifetime. There's not one magic bullet that will grant you a great deal on a car. Just be informed. That is really all there is to it. Spend 20 minutes online, and you can get all the information you really need. Also, make sure you understand what your budget is before you set foot in a dealership. I'm always shocked by the number of people who aren't sure how much payment they can fit into their budget. If you come in not firm on what the top end you are willing to pay is, trust me, you will leave having spent more than you can afford. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. The weather is crap here today, so I will be lurking around for most of it. Story 21. I've worked at a new used car dealership for 2 years now. First, we're not afraid of Carfax. We use it on every single car that comes in, whether we buy it or not. Second, we will do anything to get a used car looking brand new, which is a good and bad thing. Good because we thoroughly inspect the car so the customer can find nothing wrong with it, and bad because our repairs are sometimes just a quick patch, not meant for the long haul. When you buy a used car, make sure you check every square inch of the body to make sure nothing is awry, and ask to see a list of repairs done on the car. And last, we aren't your friend. We put on a show to make the most commission possible. Story 22. I quit selling cars on Saturday. The money is great. The people are crap. You are who you surround yourself by. But anywho, here's what you don't know that we pray you don't know. There's always a chain of command. But before you get mad at your salesperson, remember, he's got a boss telling him to do this, and a boss telling his boss to tell you to do whatever. However, there's a process. When you walk in the door, we're truly not trying to sell you a car. When you put your walls up immediately, it's hard to find out if you have an appointment, are looking for parts, looking for a specific paint color, because you're working on a project, etc. As a salesman, my job was to identify who you are and what you're looking for. But it all starts here. I'm going to skip a bunch of the process in between and jump straight to the numbers. So you've seen the car. We've seen your trade-in if you brought one, and you're sitting at the desk. I bring you a number sheet. Here's the process you need to know. Whatever sheet I bring you is not going to be the lowest cost of the car. The dealer options listed on the first sheet can be canceled to $0 no matter what. After discussing what you are considering the car should be at, ask for a VC screen printout. This is the dealership's vehicle cost screen. It's what the dealership owns the car for. Then tell them you want the vehicle at that price. That's the biggest secret in the car business. The Story 23, former salesperson here, and I worked for a reputable dealer. We never hid anything, and I always explained everything in detail before we went to the finance office, after receiving an oral agreement but not signed. We went into my office, and I showed the customer the Carfax. They did not request to see it, but the car had been in an accident. They thought it over, and still agreed to buy the car. I wanted them to feel 100% secure in their decision, and they did. Always asked to see the Carfax. I worked primarily with new cars, and it was very frustrating. The markup on new cars is not as high as what you might think. Salespeople really have to work for that commission, too. Average on a new car, for me, was $300. I made minimum wage on top of commission, but the training that I had to go through was very intense. I spent a lot of time studying the new cars. More studying and testing involved than when I was in college. When you purchase a vehicle, you want to know everything about that car, right? Please keep in mind that the salespeople really have to work for that commission. On top of the training, we are supposed to follow up with the sale and make sure the customer is happy. I received and answered calls and texts constantly, more often than not, during my precious off time or after hours. I worked 60 hours a week with no overtime pay. If you want an honest, hardworking salesperson, please understand this. You want the best sale, but don't waste their time. If you're not 100% serious, then don't even talk about price. Story 24, ex-car salesman here. And I'm not seeing the number one way we used to duck people on the car lot anywhere on this list. One of the first questions any salesman worth his salt will ask you is how much money you plan to put down on the purchase of your vehicle. This question, to itself, is reasonably innocuous. If he hasn't quoted you a price on a vehicle before you answer this, though, you're going to basically lose your whole down payment on the used car you're purchasing almost every time. Let me give you the prime example of this in a real-world example. We had a 70-year-old man come on the lot looking for a regular cab pickup for his grandson, who was proud to tell the salesman that he had $10,000 to put down on the vehicle. We had an 09 regular cab GMC Sierra on the lot that fit him perfectly. NADA on the truck was $16,700. So we know that we can get the bank to finance a little more than that on the vehicle. Since we didn't have a price posted on the truck, we told him it would set him back $26,900, and that was already less than we owned it for. This old man basically donated $10,000 grand to the dealership. I got fired a few months later when I wouldn't pull the trigger on a similar deal with one of my own customers. All dealerships do this, and it's the single biggest pitfall you can run into on a used car deal. Story 25. As a former car salesman, the best kind of customer is a person that is buying a new car and trading in one that is 3 or less years old. Commission to the salesperson on a new car sale is $100 or less, and you might sell 10-12 cars a month. So the only way the salesperson is going to make any money off someone purchasing a new car is to lowball the trade-in that the customer won't sell for themselves. Used cars on a lot are marked up at least $4,000 from the price the dealership paid for it. And added value items such as detailing and safety inspections cost the dealership almost nothing because they are performed by a minimum wage lot boy. Also, the finance manager is a salesperson. His office is the last best chance for the dealership to squeeze the tube dry before you sign the purchase agreement. Be wary of any product or service being sold from that office.